Welcome back to Beyond the Known.
Yeah.
And
Welcome back.
we're continuing our series, Timeless Egypt.
Timeless Egypt.
And today, you've brought some really fascinating material, and we're going to do a deep dive into the Middle Kingdom.
Yeah, your sources really paint a vivid picture of Egypt's resurgence after the first intermediate period, that kind of time of collapse.
Oh, okay.
And we've been looking at this YouTube transcript that details the 11th and 12th dynasties, offering some amazing insights into the rulers, their motivations, the culture.
Right.
You know, I think our mission today is to really extract the key knowledge from this era.
Yeah.
Understand how Egypt managed to get back on its feet, so to speak.
Right.
Highlight the defining characteristics of the Middle Kingdom.
Okay.
All while making it engaging and easy for you to follow along.
All right, so let's unpack this.
Yeah, let's dive right in.
And we're going to start with the 11th dynasty, which really lays the foundation for this return to stability and prosperity. Your sources really highlight that the first intermediate period was a time of really intense political chaos,
That's right.
maybe stemming from that very, very long reign of Pepi II in the Old Kingdom.
It's possible, yeah. I mean, that extended period of rule might have led to a weakening of central authority.
Okay.
And you see these local princes start vying for power, and you just have this general sense of disorder.
Yeah, and it seems like this really is reflected in the Lamentations literature that emerged from this time.
Oh, absolutely. It really underscores this feeling of a breakdown of the established order, you know.
Right, right.
But as your material points out, this fragmentation eventually gives way to the rise of Thebes in the south.
Okay.
And it's with the 11th dynasty that we see the beginning of Egypt's journey back towards unity.
Okay.
And this is where these Initef and Montuhotep kings come into play.
Now, what's interesting about this early 11th dynasty is the repetition of the name Intef or Iningtef. And your material points out that it can be a bit tricky to keep them all straight, you know, with fragmented records and everything.
For sure.
But what's clear is that their ambition is really centered on this idea of achieving unity after this prolonged period of division.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, for example, we have Intef I, Sekertawi,
Mm-hmm.
and his name itself, meaning causing peace in the two lands,
Upper and Lower Egypt.
Upper and Lower Egypt. I mean, it really speaks volumes about his aspirations.
Yes, it does.
And then you even have him inscribing his name in a cartouche,
Right.
which was a royal prerogative traditionally.
That oval ring signifying royal authority.
Right. And it really reveals his ambition to be recognized as the ruler of a unified Egypt,
Yeah.
even if his actual power at that time was still quite limited.
It's like he's laying down a marker, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a statement of intent.
It's a statement.
A preview of what's to come.
Exactly, exactly. Now we have Intef II Wahunk, meaning established in life.
Established in life.
And while we might not have as much political detail about his reign, we get this great personal story about him.
Oh, this is great, yeah.
He was a dog lover.
The first dog lover in history, as far as we know.
Right. I mean, he even appears on a stela with 5 dogs.
5 dogs, including one named Blackie. I mean, come on, how can you not love that?
And this also points to a broader Egyptian affinity for animals, for pets.
Oh, totally. You see them all the time in tomb paintings, often depicted under the chairs of nobles.
Yeah.
They even had a breed resembling the modern whippet, descended from the pharaoh hound.
Yeah, it's these details that really bring the past to life.
Oh, absolutely. It's fascinating.
So then we move on to Intef III Naknefertep.
Right.
And his name is a mouthful.
It's a long one, yeah. It basically means like mighty victorious, Lord foremost, good, beautiful, happy champion.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot packed in there.
It's quite a title.
But more importantly, your material tells us that he was actually engaging in battles in the north.
Yes, he was.
And this seems to represent a real step forward in physically uniting the country.
Yeah, he was actively trying to bring those northern regions back under Theban control.
So the Theban rulers were clearly making some progress.
They were indeed. And this sets the stage for the Montuhotep kings, whose names, as your source notes, are linked to Montu, the god of war.
Okay, and Hotep means to be pleased.
Right. So their names suggest a possibly more forceful approach to achieving this long-sought unity.
Okay, so tell me about the most significant figure here.
Well, that would be Montuhotep II Shankar. His name meaning something like causing the heart of the two lands to live, or he gives life to the heart of the two lands, reflects his pivotal role.
Okay.
He is widely considered the pharaoh who finally reunified Upper and Lower Egypt. he brought an end to the first intermediate period.
So we're really talking about the establishment of the Middle Kingdom.
Exactly. And under his rule, we start to see tangible evidence of this consolidated power.
Okay, like what?
Well, your material mentions his incredible, though now ruined, mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari.
Okay.
On the west bank of Thebes.
Yeah.
And this new architectural style, with the small pyramid on a platform surrounded by colonnades, it's just, a significant investment of resources.
Right.
And a period of relative stability.
Absolutely. And then we have all these fascinating discoveries at his temple.
Oh, yes, the archaeology.
So Edward Naval, he finds these burials of princesses and ladies of the harem beneath the paving stones.
Right, that was just the beginning.
Yeah.
But it was Herbert Winlock's later work that provided a much more detailed picture.
Yeah, Winlock really had a knack for finding these hidden burials.
He did, didn't he?
Like with that 5-year-old child, Net, whose name meant Kitty.
Kitty, yeah.
Yeah.
And even her simple wooden coffin with those characteristic painted eyes tells us so much about Middle Kingdom burial practices.
Right.
I mean, they would typically bury people on their side facing west, with those painted eyes allowing the deceased to symbolically look out into the afterlife.
Yeah. Now, what's really interesting in this period is the development of these coffin texts.
Right, the coffin texts.
And your material offers a really compelling explanation for this shift in funerary practice.
Well, it seems that the looting of Old Kingdom pyramids during the first intermediate period kind of inadvertently democratized access to the afterlife.
How so?
Well, before that, the pyramid texts, those royal funerary spells, they were exclusive to the pharaohs inscribed within their pyramids.
Uh-huh.
But with the collapse of royal power, these spells became more widely known and people wanted them for themselves.
So they started putting them in their coffins instead.
Exactly. No pyramid, no problem. Put those spells right inside your coffin lid.
Right. And then there's Winlock's discovery of that mass burial of over 60 young men near Montehotep's temple.
Yeah, many with arrow wounds.
I mean, it's a pretty stark reminder that this reunification probably involved a lot of conflict.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's even a shoulder with an embedded arrow on display at the Met Museum. It really drives home the point that establishing the Middle Kingdom wasn't exactly a peaceful affair.
No, I guess not. Now, speaking of the Met, there's that amazing discovery in the seemingly fully excavated tomb of Makatri.
Oh, you mean Montehotep II's chancellor? Yeah, that secret chamber with all the funerary models?
Yes, the models, depicting these scenes of everyday life. The butcher shop, the bakery and brewery, always right next to each other, it seems.
Always.
And even Makatri's own house.
I know, it's wonderful, isn't it? And these models were intended to provide him with comfort in the afterlife.
And it's interesting that half of them are now in New York and the other half in Cairo.
Right, reflecting the common practice at the time of dividing up archaeological finds.
Okay. And then you have that intact tomb of Wa, an employee of Makatra, with that silver scarab amulet.
Oh, yes, with the eyes and mouth ritually hacked out.
I mean, it's kind of disturbing, but also provides a fascinating glimpse into the beliefs of the time.
Oh, absolutely. It speaks to their understanding of magic and the afterlife.
Yeah. Okay. Now, another fascinating discovery, the Hekinat letters.
Oh, those were found practically by accident, weren't they? Like in the wastebasket of a neighboring tomb?
Yeah. But they give us these incredible personal insights into everyday life.
Oh, they really do. You get a sense of Hekinat's personality, his micromanaging tendencies.
Right. Always arguing with people.
Always arguing, yes.
Yeah.
And it's incredible to think that these ancient squabbles inspired an Agatha Christie novel.
Oh, that's right. Death comes as the end.
Death comes as the end. I mean, talk about bridging the gap between millennia.
It's really amazing. Now, your material also points out something interesting about the statues of Montehotep II.
Yeah.
They convey power, but they're a bit less refined than later royal sculptures.
That's true. It's likely because of the disruption of royal art workshops during the first intermediate period,
Okay.
Those skills needed for monumental royal art had to be reestablished.
Right. So even in this period of resurgence, certain traditions were still being rebuilt.
Exactly. Now, his successors, Montehotep III, Senker, and Montehotep I Nebduwire, they continued to build on this foundation of stability.
So Montehotep III, his reign might not be as dramatically documented, but it does demonstrate this consolidation of power with his son's succession.
Right.
And then there's this massive 3,000-man expedition he sends to the Wadi Hammamat.
To procure that fine black stone for royal sarcophagi
Right.
really highlights the state's logistical capabilities.
Yeah, and the detailed records of the expedition are really interesting. They even mention digging wells and providing provisions like water and sandals.
It speaks to a well-organized administration. They had their act together.
So Montotep I, he follows suit.
With an even larger expedition, 10,000 men.
Wow. And there's that story about the pregnant gazelle giving birth on a stone deemed perfect for the pharaoh's sarcophagus.
Oh, yeah, and then they sacrifice the gazelle.
It's a bit, I don't know. But it does illustrate the resources and ambition of the dynasty.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's a fascinating insight into their worldview,
Yeah. Okay, so this brings us to the 12th dynasty.
which your sources describe as an era of significant establishment and innovation.
Right. Building on that reunification achieved in the 11th dynasty.
Exactly.
And it all begins with Amenemhat.
A commoner, no less,
Mm-hmm.
who probably rose through the ranks to become vizier under the last 11th dynasty pharaoh.
Right. A remarkable story.
It is. And to legitimize his rule, and establish a new dynasty, he very cleverly uses literature to his advantage.
Okay.
So we have this papyrus now in St. Petersburg that basically crafts a prophecy foretelling his own rise.
Oh, wow.
He's presented as Ameni from the south, who would unify Egypt, which, is exactly what he did.
Right.
And his Horus name, repetition of births, further reinforces this idea of a new era of greatness.
So early royal propaganda in action.
Oh, absolutely. It's fascinating.
And he didn't stop there, moving the capital north to a new city called Ichawi in the Fayum region.
Caesar of the Two Lands, right?
Right, again, emphasizing this theme of unification.
Exactly. He was really driving home that point.
Yeah, he really was. And the prosperity of the 12th dynasty is really clear when you look at the tombs of his officials.
Oh, the nomarchs.
The nomarchs.
At Beni Hassan in Middle Egypt.
At Beni Hassan, these rock-cut tombs filled with scenes of daily life, wrestling matches.
Oh, and the military exercises depicted in these, sequential movements.
Yeah, like an early form of animation.
It's amazing. And it shows the wealth and artistic development of the time.
Right. And then we have this inscription by the nomarch Nemhotep at Beni Hassan mentioning a complete reserve of the land during Amenemhat's reign.
Right, which is a big deal. It points to this return to stability, organized administration after the first intermediate period.
Right, particularly in managing that vital agricultural land after the Nile floods.
Exactly. And your material suggests that this might have even contributed to the development of Egyptian mathematics.
It's fascinating to see these practical applications of knowledge.
It is, isn't it? Now, Amenemhat I, he also built a pyramid. But unlike some of his predecessors, he opted for a more modest structure.
Right.
With the entrance located on the traditional north side, aligning with the North Star.
Okay.
And this seems like another deliberate attempt to connect his rule to the established pharaonic traditions of the Old Kingdom.
So again, bolstering his legitimacy.
Exactly.
Now, Amenemhat, I also initiated this practice of co-regency,
Right.
appointing his son, Senwosret I, as his junior ruler in the final years of his reign.
It was a clever way to ensure a smooth transition of power.
Yeah, especially considering his non-royal origins and the potential challenges to his dynasty.
Definitely. And then, there's that lingering question about his death.
Oh, right. Your source mentions the possibility that he may have been assassinated.
Yeah. The tale of Sinua, while fiction, alludes to this.
Yeah?
And then there's the instructions of Amenemhat, that piece of wisdom literature.
Right. Supposedly written by the dying king for his son.
Though it was probably actually composed by Senwosret I.
Yeah, okay.
But still, it's filled with warnings against treachery, even from close confidants.
Right. And it hints at this possible nighttime assassination.
It's a really fascinating intersection of literature and political reality.
Yeah, it really is. So his son, Senwosret I, also known as Sesostris Serra, he turned out to be a pretty powerful ruler.
Oh, yeah, he was. And he definitely built on his father's foundations.
Right, like with his military campaigns into Nubia.
Yes. He constructed these substantial fortresses deep within Nubia, like the ones near Wadi Halfa.
Right, and these weren't just symbolic.
Not at all. They were strategically designed to control vital gold resources and trade routes.
Okay.
Those high mud brick walls reinforced with cedar beams, and that clever layout to funnel Nubian traders through them so they could collect taxes.
It sounds like a pretty effective system.
It was.
And he also continued this tradition of monumental building.
Like the two obelisks at Heliopolis, one of which still stands today,
Right.
and that incredible alabaster chapel at Karnak.
It's amazing. And all those materials sourced from across Egypt, granite from Aswan.
Alabaster from the north.
Yeah.
It really demonstrates the 12th dynasty's control over the country's resources.
Right. And it seems like he also continued that tradition of royal propaganda with the instructions of Amenemhat.
Right, most likely. And he followed his father's lead by appointing his own son as co-regent, to ensure that dynastic continuity.
Okay. So next we have Amenemhat II, another powerful pharaoh. And it seems like he was really focused on foreign trade.
He was. Your source mentions this significant expedition he sent to Punt, which is probably in modern-day Eritrea.
Right. A major undertaking across the Red Sea.
Exactly. Shows you the reach of Egypt at the time.
Yeah. And then you have all these archaeological finds in Lebanon and in Egypt itself bearing his name.
All pointing to this widespread trade with the Levant. It paints a picture of a prosperous and internationally connected Egypt.
Absolutely. And of course, he built a pyramid and continued that co-regency.
Right, following the dynastic tradition.
Okay. So after him comes Senwosret II, Sesostris II, who seems to have focused more on internal development.
Yeah, particularly on Egypt's agricultural resources.
So he reclaims land, expands irrigation in that fertile Fayum region.
Right, where the capital was located.
Yeah.
Really crucial for maintaining the kingdom's stability and growth.
And he also builds a pyramid.
Of course, as did they all.
Right.
And near his pyramid, we have the discovery of the intact, though sadly robbed, tomb of Princess Sithethorianet.
And that's where those exquisite gold jewelry pieces so characteristic of Middle Kingdom artistry were found, right?
Exactly, that delicate craftsmanship. And then there's that detail about a magical jar inscribed to provide her with cold water for eternity.
It's those little details, that really humanize these figures.
They do, don't they?
Okay, so Senwosret III, or Sesostris III, he seems to mark a bit of a shift, particularly in his artistic representation.
Oh, absolutely. His statues are really striking in their realism. Unlike those often idealized portrayals of pharaohs, his statues show this tired, almost world-weary expression.
Yeah.
Maybe reflecting the burdens of leadership. He was a formidable figure, reportedly very tall, and a significant military leader, although sadly many of his temples haven't survived.
Right.
But he did construct a pyramid at Dashur, deliberately echoing the Old Kingdom pharaoh Sneferu.
Okay.
Possibly as a way of associating himself with Egypt's earlier golden age.
Another way of bolstering legitimacy.
It seems so, yeah.
Now, his successor, Amenemhat III, continued this artistic style with similar tired statues.
Yeah, those world-weary pharaohs. But he was a prolific builder. 2 pyramids.
2 pyramids.
One at Dashur and one at Hawara in the Fayum.
Wow. Okay.
Now, the Hawara pyramid is particularly fascinating because its entrance was deliberately placed on the south side.
Okay, unusual.
Yeah, very unusual. And this seems like it was intended to deter tomb robbers.
Oh, so they were becoming more aware of this problem.
They were, weren't they? Maybe a bit of growing cynicism about tomb security.
Okay.
And yet, despite these precautions, as your material points out, the Hawara pyramid was still robbed in antiquity.
I can't believe it.
And it even fooled Flinders Petrie, the renowned archaeologist, for nearly a decade.
Oh, wow.
But the description of his burial chamber, carved from a single massive quartzite block containing 2 sarcophagi, one for him and one for his daughter, Neferupta, is truly remarkable.
Yeah.
And Neferupta had her own unique pyramid. No entrance, her burial placed in a hidden pit covered by the pyramid structure.
Wow.
Really emphasizes the lengths they went to ensure a secure afterlife. But tragically, her remains were mostly dissolved by water, leaving behind only her jewelry beads.
I guess some things you just can't protect against, even with all the planning in the world.
That's true. It's a reminder of the power of time.
Okay, so the end of the 12th dynasty.
Yeah, it gets a bit murky. Amenemhat IV, his reign is poorly documented.
Okay.
And then the dynasty ends with Queen Sobekneferu on the throne.
Now, a female ruler in Egypt, that's quite uncommon.
It is. And it suggests a potential period of instability or maybe a break in the usual line of succession.
Okay.
But her reign was brief, a few years, before the dynasty came to an end.
Right. And as the material concludes, this is followed by another period of instability.
The Second Intermediate Period.
The Second Intermediate Period, which it seems we will be delving into in our next deep dive.
We will indeed.
So, as you can see, the Middle Kingdom was far more than just a bridge between 2 major periods in Egyptian history.
Oh, absolutely.
It was a time of reunification.
Innovation in governance, artistic expression,
expansion of trade, military influence.
and those amazing glimpses into the lives, the beliefs of the people who lived then.
Right.
From the ambitions of pharaohs to a king's love for his dogs.
It's truly fascinating, and all the details in your sources really bring it to life.
Oh, they do, don't they?
The pyramid entrances, the child's coffin, those letters that sound so surprisingly modern.
It's incredible.
We really hope this deep dive has given you a much better understanding of the Middle Kingdom.
We hope so.
What stood out to you most about this era?
What sparked your curiosity?
This is just the beginning of an incredible story, and we encourage you to keep exploring.
The rich tapestry of timeless Egypt.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. If you enjoyed it, please like, follow, and subscribe for more journeys beyond the known.
Until next time.